That's so funny. I started this whole thing out muted. It's just me today. No Alex. We tried. We tried so hard. We promised a Thursday live stream during the NFL draft and then failed immediately, which that's like our classic way. How long did we take off the podcast between both children that we had? It had to be like we took a long time off. Oh man. So we're going to talk about day one of the NFL draft. It was a crazy day. The reason we canceled the live stream is it was going to be iffy for Alex from the beginning. Eventually he decided he probably couldn't do it because of childcare needs that he had. And then I have comedy all weekend, and I already spent all of my family this weekend. I'm going to spend a big chunk of it away from my family, and so not do our live stream during the draft. Also, I'm a little bit I'm getting an icon on StreamYard that seems to consider that my or seems to be communicating that my internet might not be good. So please comment if there's any problems along the way, and I'll do what I can to fix them. Might have to go unplug and replug in the router. Anyway, this weekend I will be tonight. Actually, if you're listening to this live, I will be at Comedy Bar in Capitol Hill, Seattle. Shows at 8:30. I'm certain tickets are still available for that, by the way. And then if you live down in Prineville, Oregon, I did not know how far away Prineville, Oregon was. If you live that way, you have to come see me because I'm driving a combined 10 hours. It reminds me of like early open mic days where you would drive like 3 hours to do 3 minutes. I'm driving 5 hours there to Prineville, Oregon, to the Pine Theater in Prineville, Oregon, to do an hour, bringing my buddy Jess Everett. It's going to be a very fun time. But let's get to this draft because a lot of Huskies got picked. One former Husky got picked, Leatu Latu, who I thought it was pretty cool to see some folks, including him and the Huskies, that got picked. He was obviously, if you know the story, was medically retired by the UW medical staff. Ended up becoming a first-round pick, playing at UCLA, which is pretty cool. I want to talk about a couple different picks in the draft. We don't need to go pick by pick. I'm looking at some of these grades, by the way, and I'm going to tell you my I remember when I used to go get apartments, when I would go look at an apartment complex because I wanted to rent an apartment, I would look at the cars in the complex. That was like a big indicator for me. Like if it's a bunch of like broken down Dodge Durangos, I got to make sure to get I'm locking my door, closing my blinds. And if not, we're going to see what the rent price is like. We're going to see. It was an indicator of the neighborhood. And I feel like an indicator for draft grades for me is one, I'm probably going to be biased towards anyone that isn't super hard on the Falcons for taking Michael Penix, because I do think Michael Penix is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. But two is, when you see a draft grade article and none of the grades dip below a B-, these are bullshit grades. This is not a serious person. Oh, my internet. It says my internet's failing. Folks, comment, please, if it's just this choppy pile of shit. Oh, that stinks. That stinks if that's what's happening. I don't reset my router very often. Anyways, so if you see someone that's not giving something below a B-, this is just a people pleaser. I used to be the editor-in-chief of the Green River Community College newspaper. Not to brag. Yeah, some of us got laid in college, folks. We had a dude that just wanted to, he was basically trying to kiss my ass so I would help him get a good grade in the class because I was the editor-in-chief. I had a little bit of influence, and he decided to write a draft grades thing. And it was literally just, these are the reasons this is a good pick. Every analysis that he gave was, this is the reason this is a good pick. Every single, all 32 picks. And actually, if you go look at Robert Griffin III's, and I like RG3, by the way, but if you go look at his Twitter account, he's giving like live reactions to the picks, and it's all exactly that. It's just ball washing of it's just absolute ass kissing of NFL front offices. And there's a couple other articles I read like that. So anyway, I want to talk about some of the grades that people are giving. I think ways that people misunderstand, but I guess we'll start by looking at the first chunk of the draft. So this is this is the NFL website. Obviously, I'll tell you this: I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan, and I'm trying to reconcile with myself. I'm gonna talk to Alex more about this next week when we do our podcast. And by the way, we might be switching the episodes with Alex to later in the week to accommodate both of our schedules. We'll see. We're busy guys, ever evolving. He's basically only available a couple hours a week. I'm lucky I have a little bit more free time than that between when I get done for the day and when I got to bring the kids home. So I have a couple hours pretty much every day. I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan. I also think that many of the criticisms of Caleb Williams, this is like, I guess the only way to say this is the way that I really mean it, which is I think they border on homophobic. Does anyone else feel that? Like, and I mean, down to like, I've seen people go like, he's obviously gay, something like along those lines. I wonder if my mic is too loud. Hold on. Let's see. No, it's probably fine. Yeah, basically suggesting that he's gay and then he's got like, or he's feminine or whatever. And I'm like stuck between, I don't think that's a reason to discriminate against someone. Obviously, I think I would love it. I said it when there was like rumors that Russell Wilson might be gay, which I don't know how founded those rumors were. Well, obviously he's married to a woman, so at this point the evidence is slim. But I remember being like, hell yeah, I hope he is. Like that would make Russell Wilson an icon in a way. We haven't had like an incredible athlete in football. Like obviously the football players that have come out as gay are not incredible. I mean, these guys are all great athletes, but I mean like an incredibly productive football star come out as gay. So if Caleb Williams is in fact gay, which he has a girlfriend, so there's no indication of that, that'd be great for football. It'd be great for society. I genuinely believe it's, occasionally we dive a little too far into societal shit on here. I think it's crazy how society started to dip back into like actual like blatant homophobia. And I'm not talking about people making gay jokes. I'm on board with, you can make an offensive joke about anything and I'm okay with it. Anyway, well, hold on. Who's we got one of these like face reactions from Frank Castro Jr. By the way, Frank's probably mad about this. He's always mad about this specific thing. My show at Bickerson's Brewhouse is tonight. His brewery, it's tonight. Vanessa Dawn headlining. I'm not going to be there, but I have a great lineup in my absence. Vanessa Dawn headlining, Jess Anderson featuring, Zach Fisher, who filmed my special, is hosting. Frank Castro, presumably there watching, and his wife Sean, they're pouring beers. So go out and check that out. Some very good beers at Bickerson's Brewhouse, and a great comedy show tonight. Okay. I genuinely think it's like homophobia. That is the reason why a lot of people don't like Caleb Williams. Oh, Mike, it says, keep saying my connection is unstable. I don't know what's going to happen if I try to fix this midstream, so we're going to just roll with it. I only want this to be about 40 minutes long anyway, so we're just going to have to roll with it. And if I have to, I'll upload a better version of this later. So, Jaden Daniels, there were rumors that he was going to like fall out of this spot because he was being kind of whiny about the team, the Commanders bringing a whole bunch of players to Top Golf to meet, and I think I bought into it a little bit, and I also thought that in some way the Raiders were going to trade up for Jaden Daniels because he was recruited at Arizona by, oh my God, now in my mind I'm like Arizona, hold on, Arizona State. God, I'm like, I wanted to say Arizona State, and then I'm like questioning myself. I'm very tired, folks. anyways, I mean, I remember him playing in the Pac-12. What am I doing? He was recruited by Antonio Pierce there. So there was some thought that they would move up, or in my mind, that they would move up. They would try to do it. He was going to try to meet them somewhere in the middle. But anyways, he gets drafted by Washington. I think it's a fine pick. He'll end up with Cliff Kingsbury. Drake May, fine in New England. This is exactly how everyone's been talking about it going. We don't need to belabor any of this. Marvin Harrison Jr. The first interesting pick, in my opinion, was 5, the Chargers. And a lot of people had a receiver going here because, frankly, like the receiver situation in Los Angeles is terrible. Like Justin Herbert has no one to throw to, and maybe some. I mean, Quentin Johnston might improve year over year, and maybe there's more options there than we think. But I always kind of thought Jim Harbaugh was going to start out by shoring up that offensive line. Prior to the draft, there were some rumors that J.C. Latham would end up in that 5th spot. I think Latham is a better run blocker, and Harbaugh is going to want to run the ball a lot, but it didn't end up being Latham. And Alt is was pretty widely, I think, considered the consensus best offensive tackle in this draft. I saw some people suggesting that he's not a Jonathan Ogden, not an Orlando Pace, not a Walter Jones type prospect, but the best guy in this draft by a lot of people's estimation. Malik Neighbors goes to New York, and I think that's, first off, another LSU wide receiver to New York. There's obviously been a history there. LSU receivers have just absolutely crushed the last decade. It's hard to argue against picking an LSU receiver that high. And we're going to talk in more detail about Rome Odunze and why I'm upset that he's in Chicago. But I'm worried. I'm scared if I'm drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, the Cardinals know more than I do. Malik Neighbors seems... So a lot of people have been comparing Malik Neighbors to... Actually, let's pull up let me see if I can pull up I'll pull up a quick draft grades. We can look at a draft grade, folks. The USA Today draft grades. I got to imagine they gave... oh my God, I'm so stupid. Give me these draft grades, folks. We'll get there. A lot of people have compared Xavier Worthy to Tyreek Hill. And they've correctly, it turns out, which we'll talk about in a second, but correctly they connected that skill set to Kansas City to be like what, many years in the making a Tyreek Hill replacement. I actually think if you were gonna make the comparison of someone who's ultra athletic, one of the things that we underestimate or is underappreciated about Tyreek Hill, he's fast. He's obviously very fast. He's shifty. He's great at running routes. He's also 200 pounds. So okay, so I'll share this with you real quick. Here we go. Here's some NFL draft grades. So the USA Today gave the Giants an A for this pick. We can go back up real quick and see what they gave. These are all like pretty chalky picks. They gave B- to the Chargers. I don't understand that one. I think it's just not an understanding of Jim Harbaugh very well. Yeah, so an A, a B, a B plus. These are pretty generous grades. So the spoiler is a C minus. A C minus for the Falcons taking Michael Penix Jr. Malik Neighbors, I think, is the best Tyreek Hill comp in this draft. A guy that can do a lot of stuff, and I think that the Xavier Worthy, he's obviously very fast, and I understand why people are making that comparison. I think Malik Neighbors is a pretty hard to miss guy in this draft. I like Rome Odunze better, but this is to me, I got no beef with this pick. And I said I was gonna go. I said I was gonna not spend a whole bunch of time on it, and then I spent way too much time on it. So let's get back to the regular old NFL draft here. Did any of you? Was there any places? I was actually at a bar last night with my wife. I didn't watch the draft, in a way that was like I could hear the announcers. Did anybody go to, and it's also, by the way, you got to chat. Give me some chats, people, please. Tell me what you did for the draft, because I'm curious how everyone takes in the draft. I find the draft to be a thing where, like many years ago, I remember listening on the radio to the draft while I was mowing my lawn as a child, and now the draft is like this. It's like, it reminds me of the presidential debates where you go into a bar and I just want to like consume some sports, and I have the dorkiest people in the world instead watching what they want to watch. Or you ever walk into a bar and they have like a full movie playing with no volume? What is that? All right. I'm worried about my internet. I'm worried about my connection. But we're gonna power through. J.C. Latham, run blocking tackle. Now we get to Michael Penix to the Falcons, which is the most controversial pick of the first round. The Falcons just gave Kirk Cousins a contract that is 4 years, $180 million with $100 million guaranteed. And on the surface, it's easy to go, what the fuck are the Falcons doing? It's so easy to look at what the Falcons did and think they're this overcommitted, they've this overinvested in the quarterback position. They don't even give Kirk Cousins a chance to play a single snap in Atlanta before they replace him with a rookie. Here's what I'll tell you. Let's look at, I'm gonna share a different screen with you. We're bouncing around screens, folks. This is a multimedia experience. Kirk Cousins it's a $180 million deal, but I can't believe we're in 2024, the year of our Lord 2024, and real life journalists are still reporting this as the Falcons having committed $180 million to Kirk Cousins. They did not commit $180 million to Kirk Cousins. They committed $100 million to Kirk Cousins over the course of 4 years. And realistically, there's some other, that's not even necessarily true that they've committed that much. They've committed $90 million in actual cash payouts, which you can see on this bottom part of the screen. 62 million of it is this year, 27 million of it is next year in the form of salary. They've got cap hits that will run the entire course of the contract if they trade or release Kirk Cousins at any point. Their prorated bonus, there was a $50 million signing bonus. That is a very large signing bonus. There is a future commitment to Kirk Cousins, but it's about it. This contract is functionally what would it be? It's like a 2-year and $65 million in cap plus another $25 million. It's like a 2-year, $90 million contract. And as far as the cap is concerned, about $25 million of that is deferred into 2026 and 2027. And the Falcons have the option, if Michael Penix stinks, if Kirk Cousins is incredible and there's no ceiling to his value, they can't imagine paying him too much, or the economics of quarterbacks changes so much that they have the opportunity to pay Kirk Cousins $57.5 million each of 2026 and 2027. Even if the Falcons don't draft Michael Penix, pretty good chance he was not going to see 2026 and 2027. So that's the first part. The first part is, here's a part that I'm not gonna like. If you don't like Michael Penix's game, if you don't like the quarterback you think he's going to become, that's a disagreement that I think is worth talking about. But the idea that like the Falcons sunk their future into Kirk Cousins and it's completely irreversible, there's no way they can possibly get out of it, it's just completely untrue. So if they cut Kirk Cousins, this is on Over the Cap, by the way. If they cut Kirk Cousins next year with a post-first designation, they will have 2 big cap hits. because he's got a $27 million guaranteed salary in 2025, and then the dead money would fall into 2026, 2027. If they trade him, which I'm going to talk about what a trade of Kirk Cousins would look like in a moment. If they trade him, they don't have to pay that guaranteed salary. Someone else pays that salary. They would save $2.5 million because his cap number is $40 million. They would have $37.5 million in remaining fucking prorated bonus. So they would save $2.5 million against the cap. If you put a post-June 1st designation on that trade, suddenly they can save $27.5 million. And then it's obviously like it goes further down the line. If they trade him in 2026, like leading up to in the 2026 league year with a post-June 1st designation, they could save $45 million against the cap. And then same story in 2027. So they can get out of this Kirk Cousins deal. And what I think happened, and I think they played their hand perfectly, because I don't think anyone really thought this when they traded for Kirk Cousins. I think that the Falcons, so at first people view Michael Penix as too much of an investment for a hedge against a veteran quarterback. It's too much money to spend. It's too much money to spend on a backup when you have this great veteran in the building. And I understand that people think that, because we haven't had a lot of time to process this. But what I actually think happened is, first off, what obviously happened is the Falcons fell in love with Michael Penix Jr. And I understand that, because as a fan, he might be my favorite player in the NFL at this point. Maybe the close second is Odunze. I understand falling in love with Michael Penix Jr. I was not thrilled when Michael Penix Jr., frankly, was the team starter in Washington in 2022. Like, I was not happy when he got named the starter. I didn't know a lot about him. You watch him play, you hear him talk. The entire draft process, he's been charming. He's so endearing. The fan base there is going to absolutely love Michael Penix Jr. And I think that obviously happened with the front office also. Like, they fell in love with him because they had to know they were going to get a world of shit. They were going to get an absolute world of shit drafting Michael Penix 8th overall with Kirk Cousins on the roster, with, frankly, like the other quarterbacks that were available. They drafted him before J.J. McCarthy. There were people who had Michael Penix falling into the second round and J.J. McCarthy being drafted 4th overall or 3rd overall, up as high as 2nd overall. And now he's drafted 11th or 10th. He ended up going 10th. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, and Michael Penix Jr. goes 8th overall to a team that already has a quarterback. I think that the Falcons were hedging against the future of the position with the idea that they might draft a rookie, and they might have, by the way, 2 years from now, they're going to be looking at extensions for Kyle Pitts, for oh my God, Drake London, and right about that time, Kirk Cousins will probably be coming off the books. So people are going to shit on this front office. I am of the mind, and we talked about it on the podcast a couple weeks ago. You can go check it out. I'm of the mind. I think that it's the one that'll say Barnwell article in the description, I think. I'm of the mind that you draft a bunch of quarterbacks. Figure it out. Let them figure out who's the starting quarterback. This idea that you have to sign a quarterback or draft a quarterback and then treat them like an insecure, jealous lover to whom you have to pretend like you've never seen or heard of or smelled or talked to another quarterback. You've never flirted with another quarterback. No, of course I'm not having meetings with other quarterbacks. No, of course I'm not considering another quarterback. It's complete lunacy. It's a complete fallacy. It's completely antithetical to what you want your team to. You want your team to be constantly attempting to improve, and that's the most important position in football. Stop treating these guys like divas. That's what I think. Let these guys be adults. And I actually heard, by the way, Kirk Cousins supposedly, and this is like a Twitter story, so he was shocked, angry when the Falcons took Michael Penix. And then his next question was, what's his phone number? I want to congratulate him. I like Kirk Cousins, by the way. I was mad when the Seahawks drafted Russell Wilson instead of Kirk Cousins. I've liked Kirk Cousins his whole career, and if you want a great Kirk Cousins listen, him talking to Shaq on Shaq's podcast, I think it's called like the Big Podcast, is great. I think this is a great move for. I think more teams are going to start doing this with the quarterback. The obvious parallels are Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. The Packers, those aren't the only guys those teams drafted. They traded away Matt Hasselbeck. They had Mark Brunell at a point. They had Matt Flynn. They've had other quarterbacks. The Patriots, Ryan Mallett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Castle. Oh man, I feel like there's another couple that I'm not thinking of. They also had Jacoby Brissett at a point. Like they drafted quarterbacks high also, and it caused some controversy. It caused some anger, but it's those teams won for a long time because they had great quarterback play the whole time. Of course, the Patriots never really got to benefit from Bill Belichick's ability to pick a backup quarterback that he could con some team into trading for. But the Packers have had very good quarterback play across 3 starters for the better part of 4 decades. And it's because of this. It's because they're willing to make a move that in 4 decades? Yeah, I think it is, right? Because Favre was there in the early 90s. So yeah. I want the Seahawks to do this. I want the Seahawks to be doing this kind of thing. More quarterbacks on the roster. The success rate of quarterbacks, the success rate of NFL players is very low. You can never have enough quarterbacks. You have to have a quarterback. You got to go get a quarterback. Okay. We can move on from that pick. Rome Odunze goes to the Chicago Bears. And I got to tell you, it's probably the most by the way, I think Atlanta is a perfect spot for Michael Penix. I think Atlanta's such a cool city and it's such a great place. I think like if Michael Vick had not had the dogfighting thing, we would view the city of Atlanta differently because that is, I've always heard it referred to as Black Hollywood. Michael Penix gets to go there and be a star if he's a great quarterback. And he obviously, I don't think, like, there's no reason for us to believe he's got any of the off-field problems that Michael Vick ended up having. Seems like a model quarterback. He's exactly what you want. He is the true antithesis to Caleb Williams, a guy who really seems to be like have all of his shit together. And I'm jealous. I'm jealous that Falcons fans get to watch him play in their home stadium for hopefully the next 15 or 20 years. Probably not that long. I do like the Michael Penix old jokes, by the way. I saw one that was like the Falcons brought in Michael Penix to mentor Kirk Cousins. The man's 23 years old, but they're funny jokes. I still enjoy them. We were going back up to the oh no, that's not the one I wanted to share. The Bears draft Rome Odunze, and for me, I'm a Washington Huskies fan. This is well documented. I was sad that Rome Odunze went to the Bears because Chicago is just where offense goes to die historically. And it's sad because I'm not rooting against Caleb Williams in this case. I mean, I do like being right, so maybe I am rooting against him a little bit. But it's pretty well documented the Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer. If you look at, this is their career passing leader. First off, their third career passing leader is Jim Harbaugh. People will tell you there's never been a good quarterback in Chicago except for Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon played there for 7 seasons. What is that? 61 starts, 11,000 yards. This is a different time in football. It was 82 to 88. I'm not going to try to analyze the stats, but it is always alarming when you go back and look at those stats. And Joe Namath is a guy like this too, where you're like, he's one of the all-time greats, and then you're like, oh, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. Jay Cutler, who's widely considered to be a joke. Jim McMahon played 66 games. I don't know how many of those he started. I mean, obviously, 61 of them he started because he got the QB record. Jay Cutler played 102 games. He's the career leader in passing. This is actually a crazy stat. No quarterback but Jay Cutler and Sid Luckman, who played 1939 to 1950 there, has more than 100 touchdowns for the Bears. It's a place that suppresses offense. And of course, is it because it's windy? Is it weather related? Is it quarterback related? It's all these things. I think they've had bad luck with quarterbacks. We've seen other bad weather places have success with quarterbacks in passing games. Green Bay, for an example. By the way, I was in researching this. I found out Green Bay was the first city that was ever called the Windy City. And in that Windy City, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love have put up prolific passing seasons almost consecutively every single year without exception. Jordan Love's first year wasn't as great. But anyway, receiving leaders. Chicago Bears receiving leaders. Matt Forte, a running back, is 7th on the list. A running back, by the way, that played 8 years. This is a place that's had Walter Payton as 4th. Alshon Jeffrey is the only modern receiver in the top 5 of their all-time. And Alshon Jeffrey is a fine receiver, and he had some good years. Alshon Jeffrey is not a Hall of Famer from his Chicago years. What's Alshon Jeffrey's? Last year played was 2020, and yeah, I mean, most of his good years were in Chicago. Did they get a first-round pick sending him to Philadelphia? Or did he just sign? Hold on. I seem to remember he just got signed as a free agent. Damn. I was hoping I could really trash the Philadelphia Eagles there. So yeah, I think Rome Odunze is great. I think Caleb Williams is a talented quarterback. I got a lot of questions about what I've said, and it's partly because I put myself out on the limb. I think Rome Odunze is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think it a lot less now than I did a couple days ago, and it's not because I think any less of Odunze. It's because this is like this and like a place that has like a really bad quarterback situation or a situation where they're never going to put up prolific passing yards. So like, I think he'd be a great fit with Lamar Jackson, but I also think Lamar Jackson's never going to have a receiver who puts up like Calvin Johnson, I almost said Walter Johnson, Calvin Johnson prolific receiving numbers. And so I'm a little bit sad about that. I love Rome Odunze though. He's my number one of all the Huskies. He certainly is like my surefire. He's the guy. All right, let's get back to. I'm fighting some multimedia shit here. I got a question. Audience, anyone know like a good cheap computer chair that I could get that doesn't squeak? Because mine squeaks. So I have a standing desk. I stand at it while I do the podcast. I'd like to sit sometimes. If I had a chair, I'd sit. I think that's a Seinfeld line. Anyway, JJ McCarthy, there's a small trade between the Jets and the Vikings. I have some data nerd friends / an entire group chat that's on the spectrum who think that the Jets were simply bidding against the Vikings were simply bidding against themselves, and there was no reason they needed to make this trade. That's a thing, and I'll be interested in exploring it a little bit more as the offseason goes on. There weren't as many trades, and especially not like big blockbuster trades that involved one team vastly overpaying to move up. And we certainly expected that. People certainly expected that. I also think smart GMs trade down. And as time goes on and the dumb GMs get fired and replaced with smart GMs, it's probably going to get harder and harder to trade down. I had not thought about that. I would have wanted the Seahawks to trade down. They didn't. Olu Fashanu goes to the Jets. I love that pick. Protect Rodgers. Bo Nix to the Broncos. We'll see. It's been a tough run of quarterbacks in Denver. Brock Bowers to the Raiders. People are mad about that. I don't give a shit. He's a very good player. If I was, as a fan of a team, I want them taking best player available all the time. And I will say this. There were stories that the Seahawks were interested in trading up for Michael Penix Jr. among other teams. I think if you're a team that was not looking for a quarterback, the way the first 12 picks went down is the best thing you could ask for. It meant that 6 more players than would have been available when you picked were available because teams were taking quarterbacks. If you're not looking for that position, that's great news. So the Saints, by the way, this is another thing. I'm sure this got a lot of run on the broadcast. I never heard anyone say anything about it. The Saints take Talise Fuaga out of by the way. Pretty good at Polynesian names. Least confidence on that one. Talise Fuaga. Feels good. 14 straight offensive players. So again, not only if you're not taking a quarterback, but if you're taking defensive players, it's a good year to be doing that, if that's what you're looking for. If you already have the quarterback position sewn up, you're stoked here. Indianapolis Colts take the first defensive player, Laiatu Latu, a guy I would have been interested with the Seahawks. I think I had him in I put a tweet out that was like the levels of excitement I would feel. He was, I think, in the same category as who they ended up taking, Byron Murphy II, because I don't know. I think Byron Murphy is interesting. I'm just like a dumb sports fan. I wanted to see a new quarterback in town. I would have been happy to see, like, if Odunze had fallen. I would have been thrilled to see him in Seattle, even though they obviously don't need a receiver. If Brock Bowers had fallen there, I think it would have been tough to pass up on. So Byron Murphy is a very good player, and I'm gonna switch to another. Look at this. Is this gonna work? Look at that seamless transition. I need to do that instead. This is his Pro Football Focus grades: 91.5 pass rush grade at Texas in 2023. He played on a good defense. He played on a good defensive line. The stories you'll hear that I find very encouraging are things like sometimes he would move over and play nose tackle and let Tavondre Sweat play 3 technique. I don't know the techniques that well, folks, but yeah, I find it very encouraging. Some of this stuff very encouraging. He's getting compared to Aaron Donald a lot, indiscriminately, by the way, with no shame. And it's a thing that frustrates me a little bit because he's got some traits that are similar to Aaron Donald. He's pretty athletic, but he's not as athletic as Aaron Donald was, according to the combine. He's undersized, and I really hate when people connect a deficiency as a trait. They make a deficiency a trait. So, like, people would say, oh, short quarterback. Russell Wilson was short. Being short is not what made Russell Wilson good. It's a thing he had to overcome. And then you go draft like a 5'3" quarterback at Kyler Murray and go, well, he's short. Russell Wilson was short. That's not a positive for Russell Wilson. It's a reality. It's not a positive. So yeah, I think it's possible Byron Murphy comes out and he's one of the more dominating players from this draft. The late buzz that I heard was that he was going to be the first defensive player taken. I would have guessed it would have been Atlanta. Obviously, it was not. If he's the best defensive player in the draft, it's hard to be mad at the Seahawks. It's not exciting. To me, it's not very sexy, but it's probably a pick that's good for the team, and it frees them up to consider trading Draymond Jones if that's something they want to do. And I think ultimately, like, maybe gives them a guy who in the future is going to be like just an absolute cornerstone of the defense. And I know that I actually don't think the defensive line, outside of maybe shoring up like a nose tackle, in the scheme they're going to run, it's going to be something that looks closer, at least in personnel, to a 3-4. I don't think it was a huge need, but I'm happy. I'm happy with it. I think you draft the best player available all the time, and if that's who they thought was the best player available, I don't want them to reach for a cornerback or a quarterback. I don't want Spencer Rattler at 16 or something like that. So I was fine with it. I'm not, I think that most places are giving them pretty high grades on it. Let's see what this USA Today article has on it. It was, B plus. That's pretty much exactly how I feel. And you hear the stories, Byron Murphy says the Seahawks were his favorite team as a kid. That's cool. Sometimes I don't know if I believe that. Sometimes I have those guys. It feels like those guys have those stories chambered from when, for whoever picks them, but maybe not. So that's cool, I suppose. People are gonna love him here. I think that's my guess. I think people are gonna love Byron Murphy. He's a guy that, like, I think, like Penix, you hear all the stories are like he's as professional a prospect as there is. So that's great. Feel a lot better about this than I felt about Malik McDowell. Obviously, the Malik McDowell thing went bad. LJ Collier, Bruce Irvin, like, this feels better. This feels safer, whatever that means. The Seahawks used to pick, and maybe they will continue to in the future, they used to pick guys that it felt like they were like hipsters. And they were like, I discovered this band before anyone else. It was like, I discovered, Jermaine Ifedi before anyone else did. And then Ifedi goes on to be a pretty mediocre tackle. Who else? Who would be another? LJ Collier's one that never obviously panned out. Very self-conscious about this internet situation. I gotta check this out before the next episode, because I have very fast internet at my house. My thing keeps giving me this warning sign. All right, we'll move on from the Seahawks pick. I'm neither like over the moon or disappointed in any way. It felt like kind of what the draft was leading towards, was something like that. I wouldn't have been surprised if they drafted the guy that I was worried they were going to end up with, because I just find him so uninspiring, is Jared Verse, the defensive end out of Florida State, who ends up going 19 to the Rams. 17, the Vikings trade up for Dallas Turner. That's Oh no. What is going on here? Hold on a moment. This is going to be crazy, because I'm going to drop out and come back in, and I have no idea what's going to. I have no idea what happened. It was probably terrible. We're going to fix this before the next one. This is an insane this is an insane way to do a podcast. Very stupid. Okay. So Dallas Turner, Vikings trade up for Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner's great. Amarius Mims to the Bengals. I called that sitting in the bar, talking to my wife, called it from with no analysis, hearing no analysis. Felt good about that. She was not as impressed as you'd expect. Troy Fautanu. So basically, I'm fine with skipping the rest of the draft. I'd like to talk about Troy Fautanu, and then I want to talk about what I believe is actually the most obvious fuck up of this draft. Troy Fautanu gets drafted by the Steelers. Probably gets to play left tackle. Seems like a perfect fit for him, to be honest with you. It's tough as a Seahawks fan who still harbors a little bit of hatred for the Steelers over the Super Bowl they played against the Seahawks 2005. I don't even know what number Super Bowl it was now. I'm really bad at knowing the Roman numerals of a Super Bowl. People talk about them like you're supposed to know, and I'm like, yeah, that's not. I'm not a Roman numeral guy. I gotta make sure my audio is working because of the having to drop out. Yeah, I was not on the Fautanu. I think Fautanu's a guard. I didn't want the Seahawks to draft a guard at 16, and I didn't think they were going to draft a guard at 16. To me, it seemed I heard a lot of people saying, like, if Fautanu somehow drops to Seattle, it's a foregone conclusion they would draft him. I didn't feel that way ever. Okay, let's go to the last pick because I think the biggest fuck up of this draft is so the Buffalo Bills trade back to number 32. They trade with the Chiefs, who trade up to get Xavier Worthy. We already talked about this. And then, to me, the absolute biggest fuck up in the draft is, let me make sure I have the details of this contract right, or of this trade right. The Bills trade to the Panthers, to me, was the absolute biggest fuck up of the draft. Let's see if I can pull it up without Buffalo Bills acquire the 33rd. Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought, but still, they acquire the 141st pick and the 33rd pick. So they move up 59 spots, and that's good. Moving up 59 spots is good. I might have talked myself out of this because I thought they were closer. What I think is potentially more valuable is having a fifth-year option on whoever they would have drafted at 32. Now, they might not have a first-round grade on that guy, so they might think they're saving themselves a little bit of money, moving up 59 picks. But to me, losing that fifth-year option was so much more valuable than those 59 picks. The Seahawks they don't draft again until 81 today. And I'm going to be driving to Seattle probably when they finally pick, or in Seattle doing my show. And I hope you're there with me. And then tomorrow I'm going to be driving to Oregon. I'm probably have the draft on as long as I get reception, and then try to find a way to get it on my phone. Thank you all for listening. I know these aren't as good as when Alex and I are both on, but thank you for the folks that did listen. And you listen on mostly on X, it seems like. Thank you for that, X. Oh, no, I did it. I actually called it X the first time. I used to call it Twitter, also known as X. I think I'm converting to an X person. That's no good. All right, thanks all. Casey McLean Comedy everywhere, including, that's my website, CaseyMcLeanComedy.com. Please come see me do comedy, and please go to Bickerson's Brewhouse tonight. If you can't come to Capitol Hill, Seattle to see me headline comedy/bar, go to Bickerson's Brewhouse in the Renton Highlands. All right, thanks, folks.